I grew up in limestone country. There are quite a few caves. I was on a school trip. A few adventurous guys and myself found a very small passage that was big enough to fit through. It didn't get any bigger and was very tight. Eventually, it ended in a slit about 3 inches high, with me at the front. Fuck that feeling. I hadn't really thought it through. I guess we all expected to discover a huge chamber and be able to turn around. Waiting for the train of people behind me to back out was panic-inducing, but I held it together. My view for about 10 minutes was this little impassable slit. It was all fine in the end, obviously, just a lot of very difficult, very slow, backward crawling on my belly with the roof on my back. Welcome back. Dark Recaps here. Before we continue, if you end up enjoying this video, I would appreciate you dropping a like to help me reach a wider audience. I would also be very grateful if you considered subscribing for more content like this. Let's begin. No room to turn around. Quote, something similar happened to me, except I was by myself and there was no water. I was with my brother and friend in Pepper Sauce Cave, Arizona. We were deep inside and I found a small tunnel that went off to the right of a path that you can crawl through. This tunnel was very narrow and I had to crawl slowly and you could almost feel the top press against your back. I told my brother to wait for me for 15 minutes and if I don't come back, come and get me. So I crawl in about 80 feet and this tunnel starts to branch off to the right. It's getting narrower and narrower and I thought I saw an opening at the end. I get closer with my flashlight and the opening is not at all as big as I thought it was. So it's time to turn around. I tried but no room. The walls were almost on both sides of my ribs and the ceiling was nearly on top of my back. So 50 feet later I'm crawling backwards on my chest, which was very difficult because there wasn't any room to turn around. So I get myself turned around at one point and head back. The tunnel looked different now and I branched off another path that I didn't see crawling forward. But crawling back it was visible. I was totally lost and disoriented, on my stomach and very cramped. I was getting pretty nervous. So I started to scream to my brother and my friend, but I didn't hear them. I screamed louder and louder but still didn't hear them. I crawled on my stomach a little further and tried again and I very faintly heard their voices. Only they were below me. So I yelled to my brother at the top of my lungs to come and get me. He starts crawling and yelling at me. The whole time I had no idea where he was, just following the sound of his voice. Suddenly around the bend I saw a flashlight very far away and I realized I was way off. I was so happy to see him. End quote. The cave begins to fill. Quote, I can answer this as I have been caving as a hobby for several years now. Nothing really creepy ever happens caving, but I have been in some dangerous situations which have left me questioning my sanity, or the sanity of those around me. So I used to cave with a gang of people from a university club, but I had been out of university a few years now and been doing my own thing. Well, one weekend me and my friend, let's call her Jane, decided we should go on a little trip to a cave with these guys, you know, to see how the old club was doing. The club that taught us how to cave, and we in turn taught the new guys when we were the oldies. So anyway, it's going okay and me and Jane go off caving on our own. But that evening we decided to join the group and cave with them in a cave near to the campsite. Now it was raining a bit and I was starting to feel uneasy, but to be honest I never voiced my concerns and just went with it. A large group of about 10 people get to this cave. The cave is basically a river on the inside normally, but it has a few levels of corridors that you can explore high above the river. The entrance is super tight though and requires you to climb down this tight pipe using your feet to feel for footholds. There's no way to see what is below you, and basically if you lose your footing there is a nasty fall of about 3 meters. but keep your head on and it's fine. Well, anyway, we get to the cave and the guys in the club are doing their thing. Me and Jane are just the old dudes coming along for old times. We get into the cave and there's one girl who gets stuck in the entrance at the end of the group. Turns out it was her second cave ever and they brought her into this one, even though she panicked in a much larger cave earlier that day. Two of the leaders stay behind to help her calm down and get her into the cave, and the rest of us potter on down some of the long corridors and start exploring the cave. Then I ask the leader of the group, a girl I had thought out a cave, let's call her Dick's Hit, what time it is. She tells me she does not have a watch. I ask her how does she know what time to leave the cave at to be on time for the call-out. A call-out is arguably the most important thing when caving. It's where you let someone on the surface, even your buddy who you ring, know that you and whoever else are going to this cave and will be out at this time. Without a call-out, no one will know you are missing for days and have hundreds of caves to check. Anyway, the leader of all these sweet innocent beginners tells me that she did not leave a call-out or bring any first aid kit or safety equipment. I hold my cool because I don't want the others to panic, but I tell her quietly, I am now the call-out, be out of the cave at this time. I give her my watch and start making my way back towards the entrance. At the entrance, the two other leaders are sitting with the girl who got stuck earlier. They managed to get her into the cave and are sitting with her. I tell them the situation and tell them I am leaving the cave. They ask me to go get a SRT kit, basically ropes and a harness, in case the panicked girl needs it to climb back up. So I do just that. A while later I come back with the gear, which they did not have all of, and I had to borrow off other cavers who were luckily at the same campsite. I get back to the cave and the others are leaving. Slowly, as it is a difficult entrance, and climbing out is harder. They all manage to get out, but lo and behold, the panicking girl gets stuck. And with two leaders trapped below her, she is blocking the entrance. We harness her up and I rig up an anchor to try and secure her on a rope in case she falls, but she is wedged tight. Then I get the news from the others below that the cave is starting to fill because of the rain. After what seems like eternity of them nicely talking to this panicking girl, telling her she is doing great and she will be fine, she is getting worse at this stage. I freak out. I shout at her that she needs to get her shit together and get out of the cave, because two others are stuck behind her. It kind of works and she nearly stops having a panic attack, not entirely, but stops hyperventilating, which just makes her more stuck. She still won't climb out though, so against all common sense I lie down into the hole and grab her by the harness and pull her up and out of the cave. After that, I told the club they needed to get their shit together and stop being cowboys, but I haven't gone back to them since. End quote. Felt the walls compress. Quote, during some cave exploring or spelunking, don't know the difference between them, my family and some friends were in some deep caves, and as we were heading out, we found a slit about knee-high in the rock. Getting on your stomach, there was a tight squeeze you could get into, and it led to a small crawl space in the rock, with quartz growing on the ceiling making a beautiful crystal ceiling display. We went in one by one, and if you were claustrophobic, this place was your living nightmare. Most times you could feel the ceiling on your back and the floor on your stomach every time you took a breath. We went deep in, and it was just incredible, like a small world tucked away within solid rock. I had made it as deep in as it could go, before the path waned to the left and covered with stalagmites and stalactites of sediment. Everyone was having a grand time when we started feeling some trickles of water on our backs. It turns out, it was raining outside, and with the way the crawl space dipped down before flattening out, this whole place would fill up with rainwater pretty damn quickly, with the only way for it to drain out was the way we came in. It started as trickles before it went into streams and began to pool up. Being the furthest away from the exit, and you can only just crawl flat on your stomach with jagged crystal pointing down from the ceiling, I started to panic a bit. Everyone crawled out as fast as they could as the water kept coming in, the streams growing larger and larger. We left one at a time as fast as we could, but it wasn't fast enough. I could feel the water coming up to my chin as I crawled behind my brother. Each inch I took forward felt so painfully slow that I could feel the walls compress around me, and the water was unrelenting, now splashing against my panicked squirms. I got out just as the water was up to my lips, and everyone got out safely. I am not eager to try that again." End quote. Stuck inside. Quote, "I used to cave a lot, haven't been recently, and need to go again. One of the last times I went, we explored some caves that I'd never been in before, which led to 2 somewhat scary incidents for me. Cave number 1 was my type of cave. Wet, muddy, tight spaces and lots of crawling. The stuff I love. To get out of the cave though required getting through 20 meters of very deep water, in other words, swimming. In overalls and gumboots. As you can imagine, for someone like me who was not a strong swimmer, I went under pretty quick, even with a blown-up wine bladder in my shirt for flotation. I made it out, obviously, but I swallowed a hell of a lot of water and probably came quite close to drowning. Which is why I was really pissed when the guy who'd been behind me the whole time asked why I hadn't used the narrow ledge on the side to walk on like they had, and avoided swimming. Nice of them to tell me about it. Cave number 2 was more of a pretty cave, which is still nice but not as fun for me. So on the way back, I decided I'd squeeze through the little side tunnel running alongside the main path. Some of the guys had used it on our way down, so I knew it was safe, but none of us took into account that taking the tunnel down meant I was now using it up. Up, and with a fairly sharp bend in the middle, probably close to 90 degrees, sure enough, when I tried to turn on my side to get round the bend, I got stuck. There's a photo of me looking at the guys out the end, and you can see that my shoulders and hips are bigger than the hole I needed to get out of. It took a lot of pushing one end and pulling the other, but I did eventually get out. Funnily enough, no one else wanted to try it after that." End quote. The yellow nylon rope. Quote, "We took a trip to Iceland. Me, my girlfriend, my 2 friends and their significant others. We had it on our itinerary to stop and check out a lava tube, an underground tunnel that lava used to flow through. This tunnel was completely underground after the first 200 meters or so. It twisted and turned so we lost all sight of the daylight from the entrance. Pitch black. Total darkness. We start our little hike. The tube is only 2 kilometers, if that, from start to the dead end. It was July, but there was still snow in some of the tunnels that were open to the outside. Very cool. We came across a few couples who told us that the rocks got treacherous and they didn't have flashlights. We had a few and were all fairly athletic. Figured sure, why not? After about an hour of going up and down the large boulders and volcanic rock, we get to a large hill in the tunnel. At the top of this hill is this huge boulder just sitting very precariously at the top. The boulder was tapered off a bit on the backside, so it wasn't bad to get up, but the front side, we saw at first, was flat. Not smooth, but just a straight, flat part of rock. I climbed up because it'd be a great sport to have Superman pose for a picture and a good storytelling piece. I climb up, get into position, my buddy snaps the picture. After he took the picture, with flash, obviously, one of the girls noticed something rather odd to my left. Everyone shines their flashlights on the area, and about 6 feet to my left, suspended 10 to 12 feet above the bottom of the cave, was a rope. Anchored to the ceiling. Came down out of the anchor to a knot about 4 feet from the ceiling. The knot turned into a loop. The loop had been cut at the bottom. It looked a lot like a noose. Yellow nylon rope. Suspended 1.75 kilometers into a lava tube. 20-ish feet above the floor of the cave. The strangest part was that there was no easy way to get to the roof to anchor it. It was a very well done anchor and had been there a while. It looked like someone was determined to come out and spend their final hours in absolute darkness. We kept going, but noped about it the whole time. End quote. Complete darkness. Quote, I go caving with my dad, who grew up mining uranium until his family's mine went belly up. He's pretty used to enclosed spaces and being underground, and I was raised similarly, albeit without the radon gas. I've rappelled into pits I can't see the bottom of, bouldered my way along and over one of the largest underwater rivers in North America, nearly caught in a flash flood, and slipped into a crevice. Its bottom is as of today not mapped, and has never been reached or documented by anyone. It was by far the scariest damn thing to ever happen to me. I had to brace myself with my feet, back against one wall and legs stretched out in front of me, arms on either side. I was in a pretty good spot to be, roughly 10 feet down, on wet, smooth rock. And my headlamp had come unplugged from its battery in my pack, meaning I only had the light from my dad looking down on me 10 feet up to see by. He had to leave to get rope, and I couldn't really go anywhere or reattach my lamp in my position, so I got to chill in that crevice for roughly an hour. But God, it felt like so much longer. I thought the fall itself was scary, but it was nothing compared to that. Complete darkness. And it was so fucking quiet. I could hear my blood rushing in my ears, could hear my knees creaking under the pressure, every piece of gravel that came loose from the tread of my boots hitting the sides of the crevice on the way down, just fading out. I started seeing lights and little flashes, and couldn't tell if my eyes were open or closed. And I couldn't move to check, or I'd fall God knows how far. I could hear more than I ever wanted while simultaneously experiencing the most quiet I'd ever felt, and all I could feel was the rock against my back and hands, and presumably what my feet were braced against. I started to not be able to tell up from down, started hearing footsteps and seeing movement and shapes from the corners of my eyes. It was utter hell waiting for my dad to come back with rope to help me back out. I know what I experienced was just due to lack of visual and auditory stimuli, but damn, it was the scariest thing I have ever experienced. And we always bring a good amount of rope with us now, even if we think we won't need it in a cave. End quote. Stuck inside an ancient grave. Quote, well, this was a tomb, not a cave. I was exploring, alone, in a large ancient cemetery outside of a small town in Israel. These were Canaanite tombs that were thousands of years old. Many in this region have been left unexcavated, so the area I was in looked like a huge low hill full of little dimples marking where these tombs were. So, I was wandering around these shaft tombs, which were dug deep into the ground and then branched out with different spots carved out of the rock for family members to lay. Some of the tombs were open to the air and quite deep. I got a little too close to the edge and fell in. I fell maybe 10 feet and was stuck down there. It was a vertical drop and the sides were loose stone and rubble. It was the middle of the day in Israel in the summer. I had no water and my cell service was kaput since I was below ground. I remember just standing there, looking up out of this hole in the ground with the blazing sun above and realizing how silent it was. It was an awful feeling, stuck in an ancient grave, like I was experiencing the same silence that had existed there forever and I was now a part of it, or some sort of deep thought like that. Anyway, I tried to scramble out, but the sides were too eroded and kept crumbling when I attempted to hoist myself out. I was really scared I might bring down a whole wall of this tomb and become the most recent burial in a few thousand years. Anyway, I was stuck for maybe 15 minutes at the most before levering my way up by holding onto some roots and bracing myself on more stable bits of stone. The feeling of getting the heck out of there was so relieving and personal. I rarely share that story because I was such a fool. So, not a cave, but still a pretty scary stuck-in-a-hole story. I explored many sites afterwards, but always much more prepared than I was that day. I hadn't even told anyone where I was heading when I left the house. I don't think it would be wise for me to say the specific location. End quote. Light moving around. Quote. I grew up down in the desert where there were a lot of old abandoned mine shafts. We would go explore the mine shafts for fun. There would always be some level of danger. It was common to see old abandoned boxes of dynamite and leftover mining equipment. One time we went and explored this vertical mine shaft which had a ladder that worked its way down. The ladder had a platform about every 20 feet and a hatch that would continue to the next level. I was with about 6 people, I believe. We had gone down to the bottom of the mine shaft. I would guess it was about 700 feet down at this point, and we got to the point where the shaft was full of water. We all decided to go swimming in the water, which was creepy in its own right. But as we were climbing up, I was looking up and I could see a light moving around. I began realizing that someone else was in the mine shaft. I came to one of the hatches and had just poked my head out when I looked to my right and I saw a flashlight moving very rapidly towards me, and then the hatch slammed shut on me. Someone was standing on the hatch and I could not open it. I was able to open the hatch after about 5 minutes, and it turned out to be someone that recognized our cars and was a friend of ours that was just messing with us, but it was very terrifying in the moment. End quote. Deadly spiders. Quote. One particular small cave we decided to explore started with a narrow 15-meter belly crawl. At the opening, a lot of cobwebs blocked the entrance, but they seemed to clear up after a few feet. I was the most experienced caver, so I went first and did the belly crawl pretty quickly. I came out in a small domed room, about 1.5 meters tall and about 4 meters across. I had some time before my friends made it, so I was describing the room to them. I looked up at the ceiling and gasped a bit. I'm not afraid of spiders, but the sheer volume of them caught me off guard. It must have been a minimum of 1,000. Probably more like 1,500. All hanging from the ceiling with egg sacs all around them. I called to my friends, "Hey guys, there's a lot of spiders hanging from the ceiling. Don't stand up when you get here." My friends were a little more wary of spiders and were asking questions about them. How big are they? What color are they? Are they furry? I said, they're not that big. They kind of look like black widows, but they're not. They're the wrong color. They're brown. The legs look a little lighter than the body. My friend, a Wisconsin DNR warden, yelled, "Really? Do they have a small pattern on their back, sort of like a violin?" Yes. By this time my friends were about to catch up with me. My friend, the DNR warden, burst into the room, looked up, shuddered a bit, and then forced himself to look at one of the spiders up close. The color in his face drained out, and he screamed, "Get out! Everyone get out of the cave!" He didn't say any more as he was already scrambling out of the cave as fast as he could. It took us all about 20 minutes to get into the room, and it took us about 3 minutes to get all the way out of the cave. When we finally got out, the other 2 of us were confused. My warden friend said, those were brown recluse. Some of the more poisonous spiders in North America. We were in their lair. When they bite you, you go through excruciating pain for a few days, skin necrosis, and then possibly die. We didn't go into any more caves with cobwebs in them for the rest of that trip. End quote. Boden's Cave. Quote. 2 friends and I were caving in WV. We had planned to do a thorough trip of Boden's Cave, going in one entrance and coming out the other side. About 90% of the way through, our one friend slammed her knee on a sharp pointy rock and could not put any weight on it. Crawling back out on the knee was out of the question, and climbing up out of the back exit was tricky. Any accident in a cave is 10 times more serious than outside. But that wasn't really the scary part of the trip. We finally made it out the back of the cave at about 1 a.m. We were hiking through the woods, slowly, back to our car, mostly paying attention to our hurt friend. Suddenly there was this blood-curdling, growly screaming noise that came from directly ahead. We looked up to see a pair of eyes at roughly eye level, drop to the ground and slowly move to our left. In hindsight, it was probably just a bobcat that we startled. We like to think it was a bobcat and not a mountain lion. Makes us feel better. The single most instant real-life jump scare I've ever experienced. End quote. Have you ever gone cave exploring before? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider leaving a like on this video. If you got all the way to the end, I would appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Thanks. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. This was Dark Recaps.